Let's delve further into the conference and the details therein with political analyst Lukhanyo Vanqa. My apologies for that. Thank you for your time this afternoon, Lukhanyo. A lot of things have come about in the different nuances of this conference. We had physical violence. We've got Bathabile Dlamini, who has got a cloud of really a lot of criticism around her and her leadership of the Women's League. And of course, people that want change within the league to see it a contributor to the 2024 elections. Your thoughts on the developments at the weekend so far, and really what we can expect to emerge as it comes to a close?
Yeah, good afternoon, Rofia. Thank you for inviting me. I think former ANC Women's League President Bathabile Dlamini has a date with karma this weekend, because if you remember in 2015, she had defeated eNCA, who was ANC Women's League at that time, propelled by the dominant faction at the time, which was the Zuma faction, also known as the Premier League faction. And she came out of relative obscurity, propelled by that faction, defeated eNCA and became ANC Women's League president. Sisi Tolashe is doing the same thing to her now, because she's being propelled by the dominant faction of the CR faction inside the ANC to take over and defeat Bathabile Dlamini for the position of ANC Women's League president. And you can see from the numbers how far Bathabile has fallen from her height, or the height of her popularity in 2015 when she came in to become ANC Women's League president. She got about 5 times less votes or nominations than Sisi Tolashe did. So you can see that the writing really is on the wall, but one might also sort of recommend her, or commend her rather, for the bravery of the fact that she's gallant enough to see it all the way through to the very end, because we've seen other people who were not able to do so. If you remember the ANC Youth League conference there, the contender backed out at the last minute and was not able to see it through. The fact that she's still standing and is going to see it through is something that must be commended for her bravery.
I want us to get into those that are contesting for that top seat in a moment, Lukhanyo. But before we do, and I asked this question previously as well to other analysts that we've spoken to, the relevance of Bathabile Dlamini and what she thinks she can give to the Women's League in the time that we are, you know, at the peak of GBV and femicide, a lot of socio-economic inequalities between men and women, and patriarchy within the mother body itself. What relevance would she have posed or might she pose in the slim chance that she does manage to get some form of significant leadership position after these particular votings that would be happening to deal with the many issues that have exacerbated over the last few years for women in South Africa?
Rofia, Bathabile Dlamini is a polarizing figure, I think both within the ANC Women's League and also outside in society. She's done some good things and also has done some really bad things, and some of those have been really reported on: the SASA grant debacle, lying under oath, and all of those challenges. But there's something significant that she did in 2017 when she came very close to shattering the glass ceiling of a women president inside of the ANC, and came mighty close with her cohort at that time to propel NDZ to just 1.3% shy of attaining the ANC presidency, for the first time that a woman in the 113-year history of the ANC would have been president of that organization. So that is really something that is gallant and is one of the sort of progressive developments of the ANC Women's League, considering that in 1991 they came in with a 30% gender parity, and then further on solidified that into a 50-50 gender parity within the constitution of the ANC. And you can just compare that sort of influence that the ANC Women's League has had compared to the ANC Youth League within the mother body in itself. The ANC Youth League is still trying to get representation for young people within the leadership structures of the country. But the ANC Women's League really has solidified that 50-50 gender parity. Our cabinet is currently 50-50, with women forming about 51%, I think, of cabinet. So the Women's League really has had a lot of influence within the ANC, but there's been some stagnation over the years and a bit of regression as well. And I think Bathabile Dlamini has contributed both to that progress and to that stagnation and regression.
So we do have CCC now, and we've got Thembeka as well, who are contesting for that top position at Lukhanyo. Whoever wins, what should their priorities be beyond the ranks of the ANC and focusing rather on the state of affairs in the country at large?
Yeah, I think whoever emerges needs to really look into the stagnation of the Women's League and its influence on the ANC. Firstly, the fact that the ANC provinces still don't have a woman leader, have never been led by a woman leader. The fact that in the country itself, the premiers, only 2 out of 9 provinces are led by a woman, and they need to drive that really up to closer to the 50-50 mark that they had wanted. But there's also some serious challenges with regards to gender mainstreaming in our society and gender budgeting, that women really are struggling in terms of being beneficiaries of the freedom dividend in our country. Women still form the majority of those that are poor, the majority of those that are unemployed, or even the majority of those that are underemployed and vulnerable economically in society. Oxfam put out numbers to say that the women in our society really don't benefit from the economy in the same way that men do. If ever you were to look at the face of poverty in this country, it will be black, it will be female, and it will also be young. So the Women's League really needs to zoom in on that particular issue on the economic front to liberate women economically. But also the scourge of gender-based violence and femicide in South Africa is the highest in the world. The women need to look at what sort of interventions can be brought to bear to reverse that situation. And the fact that we don't seem to be making progress in this country, we still don't have that that GPV framework is still unfunded in government. So they need to speak to how Parliament is able to resolve the funding challenges that you find in that GPV framework strategy that needs to be implemented in the country. So those are some of the very specific and real challenges that women are still facing. And maybe the Women's League needs to be less interested in the factional battles of the ANC and really look at the broader interest of women in society and the challenges that they are facing, so that the Women's League can become a bit more relevant to women in society the way they were in 1958 when they marched to the Union buildings.
Speaking of relevance, Lukhanyo, what do you think is the Women's League's appetite for the advancement of youthful or young leadership within the movement? I mean, with candidates like CCC and Bathabile, one would wonder if there is an appetite to advance the leadership or the potential leadership of someone younger like Thembeka at the ranks of the Women's League and have a significant influence on the mother body as well. What are your thoughts?
I think the ANC Women's League is afflicted by the same challenges that afflicts the broader mother body of the ANC. The lack of confidence that the ANC has in young people is really worrying. Sisi Dolashe has a hair full of grey hairs, a head full of grey hairs. And there's not even anyone under the age of 35 that seems to be challenging for any of the leadership positions within the top 5 of the ANC Women's League. And that's something that must really worry the ANC Women's League, because they're not building the next layer of capable leadership within their ranks. And that lack of confidence that they have will lead to this stagnation that we had, but also a decay in terms of the relevance of the ANC Women's League, because it no longer speaks to those that are the majority. And our country is quite a youthful country, and young women as well need to be seen to be leading the ANC Women's League, need to be seen to be influencing and contributing and crafting some of the solutions that the ANC Women's League is going to proffer to society. Otherwise, the ANC Women's League is going to be isolated and irrelevant to society when their demographics of leadership don't represent those of the broader country. So the ANC Women's League really needs to show more confidence in younger people and younger women within its ranks and propel them to leadership positions.
Lukhanyo, we have run out of time, but I have to ask you, what role does the Women's League play in the 2024 elections?
Absolutely critical. The country is about 51% women, and women need to be the ones that sort of benefit from the freedom dividend, and the Women's League are the women that need to represent them, and they're the women that need to go mobilize the women in society behind their political parties. So the ANC Women's League really needs to be solidified in order for it to play that role for the ANC, so that the ANC can reverse some of the negative trends and negative gains that they've made at the electoral box.
It'll be very difficult to do, but we'll be watching very closely. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. That is political analyst Lukhanyo Vanqa.